If you're a manager or a business owner, listen up. How would it be if you could get somebody to say yes just about every single time? That's what I'm going to talk about today with my friend Chris.
How's
Hello,
it
my
going,
fellow
Trent?
Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you. Those of you work so freaking hard for your money, and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you. You want that freedom and cash flow today. You don't have to wait 30 or 40 years from now, but you want to become work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. How? Because you have enough passive income to be able to get yourself to that point where you know you can replace your job or your business. But you're not just here to get rich. You're here to live a rich life because as you're blessed financially, you now have a greater capacity to bless the lives of those around you and create that ripple effect. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. Thank you for allowing me to create that ripple effect through you. Again, you guys have been awesome. We've been getting more and more downloads every day, more and more views. Our YouTube is starting to really take off more and more, especially with these episodes. And that's all because of you guys. So thank you so much. By the way, if there's any episode that means a lot to you or you think is special, please feel free to share the episode with your friends, whether it be on social media, whether it be just one-on-one your conversations. Share this show because that's the impact we want to make in people's lives to give you more money freedom and more time freedom now so you live life on your terms. All right, guys. So I'm bringing on a guest today that I'm really, really excited to bring on for you. Not just because his name's Chris, like mine is. Obviously, that's pretty cool too. But this is Dr. Chris Phelps. Now, Chris is a general dentist slash entrepreneur slash CEO of the Cialdini Institute. And I know a lot of you guys that are business owners know who Robert Cialdini is with influence and those kind of things and those books. CEO of that institute. And of course, he's a best-selling author as well. And so excited to bring him on because one of the biggest problems I know I have in my life is not just in the business world, but in anything, whether you're an investor, a business owner, a parent, you guys know this for sure. Your world is all about influence. How do you persuade people not to manipulate them, but persuade them to do good things so that their lives become better and ultimately allows you to create a greater ripple effect generationally as well as the community around you. And that's what we're here to talk with Chris today. So, Chris, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So give us more of your background because I don't think I've met anybody that's been so multi-talented as you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a blessing and a curse all at the same time. Um, the so as you said, I'm a entrepreneur who happens to be a pretty good dentist, is the way I like to describe it. And one of my mentors back in the day once described me doing dentistry as just my way of that was the vehicle I was using for my entrepreneurship, which I had never really thought about because it
Yeah.
kind of manifested. I built multiple dental practices in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm from, but then I started building other kind of dental support companies outside of that. Got to train from Dr. Cialdini for over a year, became one of his certified method certified trainers, or the CMCT credentials you may see next to my name, and really was able to utilize those persuasion principles in an ethical way to go back to my businesses and take them to the next level, which was kind of cool. And without realizing that I was persuading my way into another job as the US CEO. And so now, flash forward here, I've been with Dr. Cialdini for over probably 12 years as a trainer now, and now as the CEO of the Institute for over a year. And it's been quite the adventure.
Now let's kind of back up a bit. I mean, how'd you go from being like drill and fill to all of a sudden, attending some of these, these workshops and everything else to get certified? I mean, what was the introduction for you?
Well, I forget who said it, but when the student is ready, the master will appear,
Uh-huh.
right? Maybe I think it might have been Buddha or somebody like that. But that's kind of how I was my first 7 years in dental practice. I was uncoachable. Like I wouldn't listen to anyone. Like
Really?
I was fixated on a goal. I knew what I wanted, and the way I take action is ready, shoot, aim. I just
Mm.
jump, I do it, and then figure it out along the way. And as I often say, because of that tendency of trial and error, you know what, I'm going to make a damn good omelet, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, I'm going to break a lot of eggs to make it to get there. But a lot of good lessons learned along the way. And so I built those four practices, dental practices up, and it really thought I had reached these goals I had set for myself when I made the decision to be a dentist, like in seventh grade of all things. And but what I realized when I was on the other side of the finish line, so to speak, was that the only thing I had acquired was that I had trapped myself in my own job, in that I was running all the business decisions for the four locations. I was running all the marketing for the four locations, and doing clinical dentistry 5 days a week. Right. So
Right.
literally no margin. That time had to go somewhere. Right. So it spilled outside of the clinical practice days, nights, weekends, et cetera. And kind of after my second son was born, and I realized that I was trapped and I needed to get free.
Mhm.
As one of my mentors greatly said, sometimes you need to subtract to multiply.
Yeah.
So I decided to do something bold. I sold my two best offices and to buy back my time, and I took over the two worst ones with my original
Wow.
partner, and just signed over the debt on those. And then interestingly, and here's why: when the student was ready, the master will appear. You know what happens when you take over your two worst businesses?
What happens?
You've got two crappy businesses. One of them in particular was, costing us 70,000 a month in expense, but only bringing in 35,000 a month in revenue.
Ouch.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so you don't have to be a business major to realize that is not a good check to write. But, when you've
Yeah.
got three other businesses that are supporting it and other partners, you'll put up with some crap, right? It's like an
Mhm.
investment. It's an investment at that point. But when you've offloaded your profitable ones and you've got the two worst ones, that's a problem, right? I
Yeah.
can't keep writing that check every month. So I realize it now, like your brain does something funny when it doesn't know the root cause of the problem and it doesn't feel like it has the capabilities to solve the problem. It does two magical things to protect you. Number one, it ignores the problem.
Mhm.
What problem? There's no problem, right? Ignorance is bliss kind of thing.
Mhm.
Or, and this is probably even more destructive, like you see it, but you procrastinate on the problem. I see it, but I don't have to do it right now, right? I got
Uh-huh.
other practices. We got other revenue coming in. It's going to get there. It's going to be fine. And I kind of realized that was the trap I was in, that procrastination trap. But when I took over the two worst ones, there was no hiding anymore. There was no putting it off. Suddenly the fire is right there in front of you, and it was pretty damn hot. So
Yeah.
I realized I needed to do something about it. But now I go back to that root source. Like I couldn't put my finger on what the root cause of the behavior problems I was seeing. Like, why weren't my patients returning for treatment like they should,
Mhm.
of some kind, right? Why do I have to keep telling my team to do stuff? Why was it when the cat was away, the mice would play?
Uh-huh.
Why didn't they just do their job? My associate doctors, why was I paying for them to go get education and they weren't coming back and using the education? They weren't
Yeah.
applying for the patients, providing new services. So I saw this pattern, but I couldn't put my finger on why. And one of my business colleagues in a business mentoring class I was in invited me to a keynote presentation on business stuff. And who was the speaker? But Dr. Robert Cialdini.
Mhm.
And that was the first time I'd heard him talk about these six principles of persuasion, which now we have seven. And it just blew me away. And I was like, that number one, that guy knows what he's talking about. He is true authority with his research in this area because it's not his guesses. This is study after behavioral science study, right, in these
Yeah.
things. But at the same time, the consistency principle, which we call the commitment principle, stood out to me. I was like, that one right there. That one is the root cause behind all these issues. Okay, I got to go seek this guy out. I got to learn more. I got to go to the expert. And if I can wrap my head and get my head around these things, especially that commitment principle, then I should be able to change the course of what my problems were. And that's exactly what happened. I went and learned about these principles. I found out about the certification program, got to train with Cialdini for over a year, and then kind of took these behavioral science studies that I was learning and went back to my struggling practices and used them as my laboratory. Right. I felt like a mad scientist. Like, hey, it kind of worked in that setting. Maybe I could try to use it over here in this kind of setting with my
Mhm.
patients and my teams and my doctors. And the results were staggering, where within 3 years' time, my two worst offices were outproducing in revenue, profitability, and my free time than when I had four. Okay.
Wow.
Which was nuts. And then a couple years later, I offloaded one of those two practices and I thought, can I do with one more than what I did with four?
Mhm.
I was able to achieve that as well, applying these principles in action. So really kind of drank the Kool-Aid early on, so to speak, and evangelized me because I can see the power of these things in action. And the craziest thing about this is that these time periods when those two struggling practices had their best growth, like $1 million growth at each practice, multiple years in a
Yeah.
row, which is not easy to do in dentistry, right? Especially in a
Right.
fee for service model like we had. But this is like 2009, 2010, and 2011.
You're in the depths of recession.
Right. So in a severe economic uncertainty, not unlike what we're feeling today, right?
Mhm.
Um, we're thriving when actually more dental practices went bankrupt in that 3 year period than in the history of dentistry.
That's right.
And yet we're having record growths every year at each office. So it just showed me my mistake was that I was building my strategies to yes
Mhm.
around the excuses people gave me when they said no.
Mhm.
And the excuse doesn't always translate to the real root cause behind the decision. What these principles of persuasion showed me was that when you make your strategies around what people actually use to make the majority of their decisions,
Mhm.
the economy, the world around you, nothing else matters because you're tapping
Right.
in consciously to what they trust and lean on to decide. And then suddenly everything changed.
I think that's one thing that's fascinating about the story is so many people think, even in the business world, they think, well, my answer is just people, processes, and procedures. Like I just got to fix that. But what you're talking about is these actual principles of persuasion can actually trump a lot of these things, or even those things are important. It kind of throws this extra gasoline on the fire, right? That really just causes it to burn bright. And I think that's where a lot of people, I mean, in your case, you actually got time freedom because of the principles of persuasion, not just because you were trying to get more associate docs in place to help free up your time or trying to get all these processes and procedures in place. It was literally persuasion, not processes.
Definitely. Like my team, for instance, influencing them to do their job instead of telling them to do their job,
Yeah.
right? I didn't realize that's what I was doing, right? I'm just micromanaging them, not empowering them, not giving them autonomy, not giving them any kind of sense of control over their situation and what they do every day. But as soon as I changed that and got them more committed, gave them more autonomy, um, suddenly when the cat was away, the mice didn't play.
Hmm. Yeah. And anybody who's a business owner, they know what you're talking about. I know it. Anybody
Yeah.
who's managed anybody, even if you're not a business owner, even if you're a manager of people, you know what this is, don't you?
I mean, there's a lot of power when you learn how to build better relationships with your people, any people, customers or employees, doesn't matter. Anyone you're managing, but build better relationships with people. Really get to the root cause of what's causing their uncertainty. Why aren't they moving?
Yeah,
Uh, and clearing that up for them and satisfying that, and then getting out of the way and watching them motivate their own action.
absolutely. Well, let's dive into some of these principles. I know there's no way we can get into all seven, and I've learned from my experience studying these things is that a lot of times just taking one and trying to apply it over the course of a week is better service. It's better service to you than it is to just try to learn all of them and then apply them not, right? Or not apply them at all. I think it was a Shaolin monk that actually said, "I don't fear the man that's, practiced 10,000 punches or 10,000 different punches or kicks. I fear the man who's practiced the same punch 10,000 times." Right. So let's talk about that. Like, what are like some of those principles? I know you mentioned like commitment principle, for example, but what are some principles somebody could start with? Maybe one or two of these that they could try out.
Yeah, well, a simple one, of course, is the liking principle. And you and I kind of experienced that right off the get bat because we're both named Chris, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of power in building relationships when you leverage liking. And simply put, we like to do business with people we like, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's not about getting that person to like you,
Mhm.
okay? Because that's the mistake we often make. How do I get them to like me? The
Mm.
trick is, and the influence tip, if you will, is that it's all about showing that person that you're the first to like them. Okay.
Yes.
If you show them that you like them first, then one of our other principles called reciprocity kicks in and they tend to reciprocate and like you back in kind. So just by bringing up or discovering some kind of similarity or commonality with that person, even if it's small, like if all we got is our name is Chris,
Mhm.
automatically we have more of a connection than if we didn't have that and our names were opposite of each other, right?
Yeah.
So I would recommend like before you're talking to somebody, take the time to find the connection with them. Any connection, the more the better, of course, before you get down to the business at hand. The more
Yeah.
connections you find, the stronger the relationship's going to be. And we like to do business with people we like because of that, so to speak, right? But in this busy day where nobody has time to do anything, Liking is probably the most bungled principle of the bunch because of that. Nobody's got time.
Right.
Well, they not taking the time to show people that you like them first and finding these connections, it's costing everybody billions as a
Mhm.
result. So liking is a big principle that I definitely recommend. Everybody can tap into that tomorrow.
If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. Yeah.
If you're in sales or you're presenting something to somebody, or if you just present any options to people, whether it's something they're going to buy, or maybe you're just trying to influence team members right down a path. The social proof principle is a powerful one. And in
Yeah.
essence, that principle basically states that we look to the evidence what others are doing to tell us what we should be doing.
Mm,
So I know you're thinking on the surface, the listener might think, well, why do I care what the crowd thinks?
mm,
I'm different. I'm unique. Yeah, we all want to be different, unique individuals, but who are still part of a group, who are still
yeah.
part of a community, some way, shape, or form, right? So it's this idea evolutionarily, like when you see these people you associate with moving a certain direction opposite you or taking an action, there's a powerful pull for you to follow. This is the reason why birds flock and animals herd and fish school together because they've learned that what happens when you're out there in nature all by yourself.
Yeah.
Get eaten or
Mhm.
whatever. So we've learned that there's safety in the crowd, so to speak. So if you know that if you're presenting multiple options to somebody, and historically a past majority of people presented with those same options have chosen that,
Mhm.
right? Like I was at a dinner the other night and the waitress did it perfectly. She was like, here's all of our specials, and the most popular dish on the menu is this,
Mhm.
right? Just by saying that, most studies show it increases compliance and acceptance of that thing by over 23%,
Interesting.
right? Just by highlighting, because most people, when they're trying to make a choice, may not be sure which path they should choose, right?
Mhm.
Which meal do I want? Oh, but that's the one the majority of people have bought here. Okay, maybe I'll be safe getting that one tonight. And it's that
Right.
clearing up the uncertainties where social proof lies, and it tends to move people down the path, which is kind of cool. So,
Yeah. I
um,
want to go back a little bit, and I want to go back to social proof too, but I want to go back to the like principle too, because I know there's different people out there that talk about different aspects of persuasion and sales and things like that. I mean, even books like Pitch Anything, for example, and they say don't build rapport. You can kind of build rapport throughout the presentation, but don't mince meat. Don't waste time on that. Just go right into your pitch. Pre-frame, hit them hard, all that kind of stuff, right? How would you respond to that? Based on what you've learned with persuasion, how would you respond to that?
well, automatically, as I said, if people don't like you, they don't say yes,
Yeah.
right? Regardless of how good your pitch is.
Hmm.
So if you don't take the time to establish some kind of rapport with them, you're bungling an opportunity. The good news is you don't need like 40 things in common, right? 40
Yeah.
different connections. It doesn't even take 30, 40 minutes to define these things, right? You don't have to waste time as far as that goes. You can do your research before you get to them. Scour the internet for any public information that they feel free sharing, any pictures they posted on their Facebook page, right? And then you see like the favorite sports team and it matches the sports team you like. I do this trick with my own team. I have shared everything publicly with my team and my dental practices that I care about sharing about myself, my family, my hobbies, my interests, my animals, whatever. And so I lean on them to be my detective. So they're the ones that take the time with the customers to sniff out what the connection is between us. And then they bring that to me so I can start the conversation with it. So
Yeah.
let's say, Dr. Phelps, you got a new patient in room two. She's got two kids like you do. Both are boys like yours, and she plays tennis. Great. So now I can come in. Hey, Mr. Jones, nice to see you. Hey, here you got two boys. Tell me about your boys. I got two boys. You play tennis? Tell me about tennis. Right. And I can go right into it. Just bringing that there's a connection, then moving on to what I'm there to present
Hmm.
still gets the effect.
And that kind of ties in with the social proof because it's almost like using those three magic words of just like you, right? Like people just like you, or myself, myself who's just like you. This is what I chose, or this is what my preference is, and that's where we kind of get that bond together, don't we?
Yeah, well, and I say this with social proof a lot. The closer the majority gets to home, the more influence social proof has. So it'd be
Yeah,
one thing I said the majority of people in North Carolina chose this path, right? Versus the majority of people in Charlotte, North Carolina, versus the majority of people in this office that come through this office, versus the majority of people in this office just like you,
yeah.
right? Kind of adding that similarity, but showing that there's multiples of those just like them that have chosen this path and said yes to this as well. All just amplifies its power.
Now, how would that work in a work setting? Let's just say somebody's a manager, like maybe they're a W-2, W-2 employee, but they're a manager of a team. How could they use that with their team?
Well, if they're presenting them, trying to move them down a path, if they've done their research and they've seen that others have chosen this path or made this decision and had great results, then they can report on that. Hey, I've talked to other people in different industries in this kind of setting. And when the team got together and chose this path, the vast majority had great success. So I want us to try it with us and to see if we can make this work for us as well.
Mm,
If you've got any kind of numbers or statistics that highlight that a majority of people have had success with that or chosen a path, then citing the statistic just sharpens the effect even more. Hey, I've talked to 10 different companies and 9 out of 10 of them had great success with this. So I really, in this industry similar to ours, so I really want to try this and see if we can make this work for us.
60% of the time, it works 100% of the time, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But and that kind of plays into the ethics of this, right? Because when we talk about persuasion in our world, you can people can leverage these things and they in an ethical way, which is what we recommend, but
Yeah.
maybe all of us have experienced the opposite where it's been kind of in an unethical way, right? So we're highlighting and promoting to do this in an ethical way. So if you're going to cite a number or statistic, just make sure it's legitimate,
Hmm.
right? You've done the work and you're not pulling out a number, so it's not like 87.4% of all statistics are made up.
Yeah.
Is this an actual study or not? Or you actually did some work to discover this with prior customers have said or done?
Yeah, I know people have followed this channel long enough. They kind of know for me, like that's one of my biggest pet peeves when people start spouting off things that aren't even true or quoting people that didn't even say that quote in the first place, like Einstein saying compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world when he never said it, right? But everybody quotes it, as if it's true. Like, Abraham Lincoln say that, the internet was the best thing that came to him, that kind of thing, right? Or what was it? 80, everything he learned that was worthwhile was on the internet, I think is what Abraham Lincoln said, right? I mean, those kind of things, right? But then again, every once in a while, I've had people on the YouTube channel even say, "Hey, Chris, actually, this is the stat, not this one." And like maybe it's like as I had an old stat from the previous year, and they give me a new one. Like, you know what? You're right, because I could try to be like some people and just try to say, "Oh no, like this is it, like I know truth." But it's like, no, I can make mistakes too. So, in fact, if I make one, I want to know about it.
Definitely. Right. And by doing so, of course, that just hits upon the authority principle, another great principle. We look to credible, trustworthy experts to tell us what we should do. And that's one of the ways it's not about you telling people you're the expert or the authority. It's
Mhm.
about letting other people, other items, your past actions present you as the expert.
Mm,
And one of the ways you can build trust with people is to do just like you did. Uh, Admit a weakness in your case early on in the conversation, right?
mm,
Uh,
yeah,
and automatically, by admitting that, yeah, I made a mistake, I'm human, it shows that ultimately that you're being transparent.
yeah,
And I can tell you in this day and age of AI and are you even talking to a real person, there's no more transparency. Not like there should, not like we used to
yeah.
have, but right. So showing people these things that you're not trying to hide the elephant in the room, you're starting with it, so to speak, is an extremely powerful tip you can use to start building more trust with somebody faster, and automatically they're going to be more likely to take your recommendations to heart.
Well, that kind of led me to a question that popped in my head here that I've never thought about asking before. But is there a way to tell when someone's using this from a manipulative or harmful standpoint versus a of a good standpoint?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Mhm.
Uh, Sometimes you don't see it. Like I remember being in a crowd one time after at a big event, and the person speaking gave a ton of value. So reciprocity was in play. People were feeling good about what they were taught. But at the end of the day, there was a big call to action. And, for the first 10 who run to the back of the room, they can save $10,000 off this $100,000 coaching package, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, on cue, 10 people stand up and run to the back of the room. Well, knowing the social proof effect and how we're heavily affected by others around us, especially in that situation,
Mhm.
directly around us, not shockingly, 10 people stood up immediately and ran behind those first 10. And then
Mhm.
20 more stood up and ran behind those folks. And next thing you know, there's like 60 some people waiting in the back of the room. Now, had that been organic and genuine, which it appeared, right? That's why so many people responded. That would have been a great example of social proof in action. Okay.
Yeah.
I just happened to be at the bar later that evening and found a couple of those initial 10 because I was curious
Mhm.
and cornered them and found out that they were actually paid to do that.
No way.
It was not organic to the situation. It was not natural. Okay. And that's
Wow.
what our ethical rules, right? We're not staging these things. We're not falsely planting them into situations where they're not there because the effect's going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, right, we're our job as expert persuaders. We need to be detectives. We're just scanning the situation, looking to see which principle is actually present in the situation or multiples, and then we're going to tap into those. Right, we
Mhm.
don't have to falsely put these things in where they're not
Yeah.
belong. Because what do you think is going to happen? Like that guy probably got away with it at that event, but at some point, you keep doing it,
Hmm.
it's going to get out. And what's going to happen to your credibility?
Yeah.
And it's going to be impossible to get back. So I will say that while it may be difficult in the moment for you to suss that out, that if they are repeating this behavior, it's only a matter of time.
Hmm.
This stuff always comes out.
Yeah. Truth
Doesn't help
eventually
in
comes
the
out
moment, but it's going to come back to bite them.
for sure. Well, I know time goes by fast when we're doing this kind of thing. Before my final question that I'm going to ask you here really quick, best way for people to follow you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, Dr. Christopher Phelps. You can email me, Chris at the Cialdini, or sorry, just Chris at Cialdini.com. And Cialdini, of course, is probably the most mispronounced and misspelled name in the world. So hopefully we can post that in the show notes somewhere for him to look that up. But Chris at
Yeah.
Cialdini.com.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes, and we'll make sure that our people spell it right too. Because I know Cialdini, that there's still people that would say, "Oh, I love that book, Influence, that by Cialdini or Caldina or whatever they say." I'm like, no, it's
All
not.
right.
It's Cialdini. It's Italian. You know,
I've heard 1,000. You got to use your hands too. No.
it's right. It's think of like Chow, but it's not quite there, but it's close. But yeah, awesome. That's great. And I know you've got a mastermind coming up this summer that some people may be interested in as well. So I definitely recommend following Chris to learn more about that because I know just hearing on a podcast isn't enough. Chris, final question for you. This is obviously the Money Ripples podcast, right? We talk about the ripple effect you create in people's lives. What do you feel is your ripple effect that you're here to create?
My ripple effect is just that to teach people how to ethically leverage these principles that the majority of people are using to make their decisions.
Hmm.
Because if we're using these things in an ethical way, right, then if we influence people down a path to yes, we both win in that scenario,
Hmm.
right? But at the same time, if we don't influence them down a path for whatever reason, we don't tap into these principles, we give them other things to use to decide then these things, then ultimately we both lose in that scenario.
Right.
And we want win-win situations, not lose-lose situations. So like with my patients, for instance, my goal was to always just to influence them to say yes to something, meaning some treatment recommendations I gave them.
Hmm.
Because if they do something, then I know they're going to leave in better oral health, right? Than if they chose to do nothing. Because if they did nothing, it was just going to cost them more time, money, and pain because
Yeah.
of that down the road. Just a matter of time, right? So I think kind of look at that in the same way with trying to teach anyone ethical persuasion is that there's a cost to these no's that we're getting every day. And to both sides, us and more importantly to the other people. So if we can stop no and influence ethically more to say yes, and they learn to do the same, imagine the ripple effect that would create where everybody's
Oh
winning
yeah.
in each of these scenarios down the road. You're talking about better relationships, better decisions, and more lasting impressions that we can make with others. Kind of do more with others than trying to do it alone. Um, so that's my job. I'm trying to spread the word that this research Dr. Cialdini figured out 40 years ago, by the way. We just had the 40th anniversary this past year.
Wow.
And it's never been more relevant and prevalent than it is today, which is kind of
So
crazy.
true.
So let's learn how to ethically move people down a path where we both win and watch the ripple of the effect of that kick in.
Yeah. Don't worry about being an influencer. Be somebody worthy of influence, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, guys, awesome. Again, Chris, thank you so much for being a part of this today. It's such a value of information. I know we couldn't even fit into one episode.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Everybody else, be sure to follow Dr. Christopher Phelps. Be sure to follow him on social media like LinkedIn. Also, we'll put it in there as well, like a link as he starts to develop or actually release his new mastermind that's coming out this summer. And we're going to release this right about the time that it comes out. So be sure, guys, to look that up. And especially if this resonates with you, if you want to be somebody that wants to create a bigger ripple effect and impact in the lives of others, this is a fantastic way to do it. Um, I can't think of much of a better way to do it than doing it this way. So be sure to guys to follow and reach out to Dr. Chris today. Guys, make it a wonderful and prosperous week, and we'll see you later.